Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well and had a great weekend so far, and the week is treating you well whenever you get to watch this. We're going to continue down our history lesson of modern music and rock music and how blues sprouted that tree and gave us all these different genres of music. Following going north off the Mississippi River from Memphis, Tennessee, on this blues history tour. We're going to make a stop in the windy city of Chicago and discuss the birthplace of a more electric style of blues that is famously labeled after this city. Also, many consider it urban blues, Chicago style blues. What defines this style differently than what we have already discussed with the Delta blues, where Delta blues was typically solo guitar players who would belt out deeply emotional lyrics about the hardships of the time they were going through. Chicago style heavily emphasizes more on electrical instruments and some horns and brass components in use of distortion and overdrive running through amps and harmonica played through PA systems or guitar amplifiers. Think of like the Blues Brothers or Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy, um, Howlin' Wolf, to name a few, but we'll talk about a couple of those a little bit more later. Both heavily amplified, often to the point of distortion, along with the rhythm section of drums and bass guitar, first eventually acoustic, eventually later on bass guitar, and piano and keyboards depending on the song and the performer. Some of these first musicians that settled in Chicago, many were known that many already know of, are like Big John Bill Bronzy, uh, Willie Dixon, Howlin' Wolf, John Lee Hooker. But the first couple were Muddy Waters, where he teamed up with Big John, Big Bill Brosey. Um, a lot of scholars also call this time during the late 1920s, early 1930s and 40s up until the 1950s, the Great Migration, when like Muddy Waters and all these guys were leaving the deltas and going up north for better opportunity. They call it the Great Migration, going into um, these metropolitan cities like St. Louis, Detroit, and they were trying to get away from the Jim Crow laws, the heavy oppression, the terrible working conditions in those fields and on those farms as indentured servants. Um, Muddy Waters was one of the first to make it up there during this great migration. And in 1943, he joined up with a other musician up there, like I mentioned, uh, Big Bill Bronzy, where they both developed that distinct sound that many have come to know today. Uh, Eventually, they were joined with fellow blues musicians, as I mentioned, Willie Dixon, Howlin' Wolf, John Lee Hooker. And then now by the 1950s and the early 1960s, blues was becoming internationally known. And it made it crossed over to the pond and started influencing so many rock and roll musicians across the pond, even here in the United States. Like some of the musicians that these guys influenced were Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Bo Diddley, Elvis Presley, and across this pond, it was influencing the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, the Who, Deep Purple, Eric Clapton and Cream, Led Zeppelin. So this is where that tree started to grow even bigger and bigger and branch off so many other places and start influencing guys that influence players my age and pioneers of current music. So, but like I said, there's always going to be some disagreement in any topic. That's why many people consider Chicago blues urban blues, and some people consider it Chicago blues. Also, they dispute a lot of places where formed, because at the same time it was starting to form in Detroit. It was starting to kind of form in St. Louis, where a lot of these musicians were playing what they called street parties. You know, definitely in St. Louis. Let me see what my notes say. Yeah, they would do. Street musicians would perform rent parties and other events in black communities. For example, bottleneck style guitar player Gary Kokomo Arnold was a steel worker by day and had a moonshine business that was way more profitable than his guitar playing and blues playing and his music. So, some of this was hot side hustles for a lot of these guys. And sometimes I really think that the location is what really mattered at the time, and kind of who settled there and who called it home. Like, I'm sure if Muddy Waters ended up in Detroit instead of Chicago, then it would be like them saying that Muddy Waters discovered Detroit style. I think it all depends on semantics of where they ended up. Yes, I have Reese's Peanut Butter Cup pajama pants, so screw you. I love Hershey's. I really do appreciate everyone coming along this ride with us, and I hope everyone finds this stuff interesting as much as I do, and I hope I sparked some of your guys' curiosity to dig into this further. Um, we're gonna go continue this, but there is so much information out there that I could only cover so much, and I tried to my best picking and choosing who and what topics and what eras I will cover and how I would cover them. Um, if I was to go truly in depth, I think we would have like hours and hours of discussion. And I think my job is to facilitate the curiosity and maybe interest you to dig a little bit further, maybe to spark your curiosity to listen to a different genre of music that you may not listen to it before, or maybe, oh, I'm going to visit family in this such and such city, and it's not that far from, this part of Mississippi. And I remember Phil on Off the Streets Productions talking about how Morgan Freeman has uh, joint jive and juke joint in Mississippi, right over the border of Tennessee. Um, or if you're in Chicago and you want to check out BB King's House of Blues, or if you're in Memphis and but I just hope I spark some curiosity for you all to continue to look further into this. This is a really cool part of history of music, and I think it helped form so many other genres besides just rock and roll. It helped form R&B, hip hop, rap, gospel. And it's kind of interesting how this all started in fields as of enslaved people, as holler songs and field songs, and then into what we have now as blues. You know, I remember being in my early teens and discovering Stevie Ray Vaughan and thinking he was really freaking amazing. I had that VHS tape of him live in Texas. Um, can't remember the name of the venue, but it was they even have a live album of it. But I remember watching that like every day after school, and being just like infatuated of his skill playing and his style of playing. And it's crazy how he was inspired from people so many years before him. Currently, we have Jack White, who's brought so much attention to the blues music. We have Gary Clark Jr., who's an amazing musician. I hope one day to see live and be able to capture him performing. But I think I've rambled on enough, and I hope you enjoyed this video talking about blues and how it helped form modern music and everything. Thank you for watching, and remember, we're not each other's enemies. Have a great day, and good luck to everybody, and hope you all stay safe. Thank you. Have a great night.